declared to the Treasury but missed the deadline. She self-reported the error and is expected to apologise. Rachel Reeves. I said at the beginning, Oscar, but Rachel Reeves is in a theatre more often than Andrew Lloyd Webber. I don't know what is she ever in the Treasury?
Rachel Reeves, the woman controlling Britain's finances, is now under official investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Watchdog. This isn't some minor administrative error. It's about potential hidden financial interest that could compromise her role as Chancellor. While Keir Starmer preached about integrity when in opposition, he's suddenly gone silent now that his own Chancellor faces scrutiny.
Supposedly, this was the party that just didn't go there, but it turns out they do, and Rachel Reeves in particular, because she can't get out the stalls.
What exactly is Labour trying to hide from the British public? And why should you care about what happens next? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Let's turn back the clock, shall we? Remember Sir Keir Starmer, standing tall at the dispatch box, moral outrage personified, as he lambasted the Conservatives over their alleged misdeeds. His voice would rise with righteous indignation whenever the slightest whiff of impropriety emerged from the Tory benches. During the Boris Johnson era, Starmer fashioned himself as the nation's ethical compass, pointing accusatory fingers while demanding the highest standards of transparency. The British public deserves better, he'd proclaim, his former prosecutor's demeanour on full display. This government must be held accountable. How many times did we hear variations of this same speech? Countless parliamentary sessions featured Starmer's performative outrage, positioning himself as the principled alternative to Conservative chaos.
And it was meant to damage, and that damage has absolutely been caused.
Yeah, 100%.
Yet now, as Prime Minister, that same voice has mysteriously disappeared. The man who couldn't wait to pounce on Conservative impropriety has become suspiciously mute regarding his own Chancellor's investigation. This isn't just garden-variety political convenience, it's a masterclass in hypocrisy. What makes this silence particularly telling is the gravity of what's unfolding. This isn't some minor paperwork mishap. Rachel Reeves, Chancellor of the Exchequer, the second most powerful figure in government, is under official investigation for potentially failing to declare financial interests that could influence her decision-making. The person controlling Britain's entire economic future may have hidden connections that affect her judgment on policies impacting millions of citizens. The specifics are damning. Reeves faces a formal registration of interest investigation that began on April the 29th. Yet somehow this critical information only became public knowledge months later.
Tickets for a Christmas theatre trip where she's under investigation for the late registration of those tickets.
One must wonder what machinations occurred behind closed doors to keep this quiet for so long. The timing couldn't be more devastating for Labour. Just as Reeves attempts to establish herself as the steady hand on Britain's economic tiller, questions emerge about her very integrity. The credibility she's desperately trying to build with the financial markets now stands on increasingly shaky ground. This isn't Starmer's first selective silence either. His leadership has been marked by convenient moral blindness whenever scrutiny falls on his inner circle. When previous scandals touched his cabinet, the formerly vocal prosecutor transformed into a model of discretion.
Declared to the Treasury but missed the deadline. She self-reported the error and is expected to apologise.
The pattern is unmistakable. Principles apply only to political opponents, never to allies. For someone controlling the nation's finances, undisclosed interests aren't trivial matters. They strike at the heart of democratic accountability. Every tax decision, every spending priority, every economic policy now carries the shadow of potential hidden influence. The British public deserves to know whether the person determining their financial futures has concealed connections that might sway her judgment. The shadow of hidden influence doesn't just fall on Reeves herself. It extends to the entire Labour PR machine now working overtime to downplay this investigation. Have you noticed the stark difference in media coverage? The same outlets that splashed Conservative financial missteps across front pages for weeks are burying this story deep within their political sections.
They're scrapping to find 300 quid to feed their kids. I mean, I'm not. That is just the reality. So
this isn't coincidence. It's the usual playbook being deployed with precision. Compare the breathless, indignant coverage when Conservative ministers face similar scrutiny to the muted, almost apologetic tone now surrounding the Chancellor's investigation. Headlines that once screamed Tory scandal now whisper procedural review of ministerial declarations when Labour faces identical issues. The hypocrisy is stunning but entirely predictable. What's particularly troubling is how vigorously Labour's media shield is attempting to frame this as nothing more than a clerical error, a simple box left unticked on a government form. But consider what's actually at stake. The person controlling Britain's purse strings potentially concealing financial connections that could influence how taxpayer money is allocated. This isn't about paperwork, it's about power, influence, and whether decisions benefiting millions of citizens are being made with undisclosed motives. Questions remain about why this investigation remained hidden for months. Was information deliberately suppressed? Did Labour hope the story would never surface? The investigation began on April 29th, yet only emerged publicly after journalists began asking uncomfortable questions. The timeline alone suggests a concerning lack of transparency from a party that promised to be an open book.
Some point soon. But being late to declare it, look, she's got her handlers around her that are meant to do that stuff, I'd imagine.
Political analysts speculate that Reeves may have failed to disclose speaking fees, financial relationships with private sector entities, or benefits received that could create conflicts of interest. These aren't trivial matters for someone crafting tax policy that impacts every business and citizen in Britain. Each budget decision, tax adjustment, and spending priority could potentially be influenced by connections the public wasn't allowed to know about.
this isn't right and fair sometimes, and particularly when things are going so south and so badly with the economy.
This pattern of behaviour exposes the hollowness of Labour's promise to represent a fresh approach to governance. When faced with legitimate scrutiny, they've reverted to the same defensive crouch they once criticised, minimising, deflecting, and hoping the storm passes quickly. Their actions reveal that different politics was merely a campaign slogan, not an operating principle. If investigations confirm Reeves concealed financial interests while making economic decisions affecting millions of British families, this represents something far more serious than an administrative oversight. As one source reminds us, financial transparency isn't a side issue, it's the foundation of democracy.
Rachel Reeves. I said at the beginning, Oscar, but Rachel Reeves is in a theatre more often than Andrew Lloyd Webber. I don't know what is she ever in the Treasury?
What we're witnessing isn't just a potential lapse in judgment, but a fundamental betrayal of the public's mandate. When it comes to our democracy, financial transparency isn't some optional extra. It's absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, for sure. But this is the point that, again, a lot of politicians completely miss, and Labour are missing time and time again.
The person who controls our nation's finances must have their own financial affairs beyond reproach. That's not my opinion, it's the cornerstone of democratic accountability. What we're witnessing with Rachel Reeves raises profound questions about Starmer's entire administration. The British public deserves to know if the individual shaping their tax policies and spending decisions has undisclosed financial interests that could be influencing those choices. This investigation represents a potential betrayal of public trust. When voters handed Labour the keys to Downing Street, they expected better. But the evidence increasingly points to more of the same old politics.